Greetings, children. Welcome to the online classes. This is Aishwarya. The following video is for class 6, subject General Science, chapter 5, Separation of Substances, part 3. In part 1 and part 2 of this lesson, we learnt about what is separation and why we use the separations in our daily life, in which things we use the methods of separation in daily life. Then we saw what are the different methods of separation. What are the different methods of separation? Hand picking, threshing, winnowing, sieving, sedimentation, decantation, and filtration. All these in among this we learned about hand picking, threshing, and winnowing methods. We have finished, right? In hand picking, we separate by the method is used for separating the objects which are bigger in size, right? You pick the impurities from your hand. Then threshing, we used threshing is done with the help of threshing is also used, and then winnowing also we learnt. Next is we are now in today's video we'll be learning about sieving, sedimentation, decantation, and filtration. I request you to go through the textbook when I'm reading out the textbook and explaining, children. I'm starting with page number 38. Sieving. Sometimes we may wish to prepare a dish with flour. Now, we need to remove the impurities from the bun that may be present in it. What do? We use sieve and pour the flour into it. Sieving allows the fine flour particles to pass through the holes of the sieve, while the bigger impurities remain in the sieve. As you can see in the picture, the sieving, we use it in our daily life also, right? To separate the impurities from the flour, right? Wheat flour or rice flour or jova flour or ragi flour, all these things we use to remove the impurities. We do sieving, right? Yes. uh, in a flour mill, impurities like husk and stones are removed from the wheat before grinding it. Usually, a bag full of wheat is poured onto a slanting sieve. The sieve removes piece of stones, stalks, and husk that may settle with the wheat after threshing and winnowing. Here you can see how the slanting sieve is used for separation of pebbles and stones from sand. Okay, the same thing in the flour mills. The impurities like husk and stones. Husk and stones are a little bigger in size than the wheat, so before grinding it, it is removed using the same process. Okay, you may also have noticed similar sieve being used in the construction sites to separate pebbles and stones from sand. See, in this way they just pour the sand and keep rubbing on it, keep moving it uh, on the sieve. That time all the fine sand will fall down and the other impurities like the pebbles and stones will be separated. So good quality of sand is required for buildings and everything. Okay, for constructions a good quality of sand is required. So that's why it using the sieving process only they separate the stones and pebbles from the sand. Then we have a small activity in the textbook. Bring a sieve and a small quantity of flour from home to the class. Now, you can do this at home itself. Sieve the flour to separate any impurities in it. Okay, you just have to clean the flour that you get. Now, make a fine, take a small part of the flour, children. Don't take one big part, then it won't be good. Now make a fine powder of chalk pieces and mix it well with the flour. Chalk pieces, just crush it and make it a fine powder and mix it with the flour. Can we separate the flour and powdered chalk by sieving? Now this mixture, no, if you put it on the sieve and you try to sieve it, you think you can separate the flour and the chalk powder? No. Sieving is used when components of a mixture have different sizes. Sizes are important in this sieving method because to separation is easier. Separation is depending upon the sizes of the mixture. So next we are going to sedimentation, decantation and filtrations. Okay. Sometimes it may not be possible to separate components of a mixture by winnowing and handpicking. For example, there may be lighter impurities like dust or soil particles in rice or pulses. How are such impurities separated from the rice or pulses before cooking? Okay, small like hand picking can be used for cleaning the rice, right? But there also to clean the rice, we only particles which we can see, we can pick it up with our rice with our hand and clean it off. But what about the dust and soil particles? It is mixed with the rice, it will become difficult to separate it. Rice and pulses are usually washed before cooking, right? Every before cooking we wash the rices and the pulses. When you add water to these, the impurities like dust particles get separated. These impurities go into water. Now, what will sink to the bottom of the vessel, rice or dust? Why? Have you seen the vessel is tilted to pour out the dirty water? So, that process is called sedimentation. When the heavier components in a mixture settles after water is added to it, this process is called sedimentation. Now, if you take a, here you can see a mixture, a water containing insoluble impurities like sand and water. After, if you just keep it aside for some time, that all the sand particles will settle down on the bottom of the jar, on the bottom of the glass. That process is called sedimentation. 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 Understood? This process is very very important. We use this in our daily life in cleaning the cleaning the pulses and the rice, right? Then, when the water along with the dust is removed, this process is called decantation. Understood? Now, sedimentation means when the sand settles down. Then a top layer of water is present. No, when you separate that water from that jar, that process is called decantation. Like this. Let us find out few other mixtures that can be separated through sedimentation and decantations. The same principle is used for separating a mixture of two liquids that do not mix with each other. For example, oil and water from their mixture can be separated by the process. If a mixture of such liquid is allowed to stand for some time, they form two separate layers. The component that forms the top layer can then be separated by decantation. Let us again consider a mixture of solid and liquid. Yeah, when we a mixture of solid and liquid. After preparing tea, what do you do to remove the tea leaves? Usually, we use strainer to remove the tea leaves, right? Try decantations. It helps a little. But do you still get a few leaves in your tea? Now pour the tea through a strainer. Did all the tea leaves remain in the strainer? Yes. This process is called filtration. Which method of separating tea leaves from the prepared tea is better? Decantation or filtration? Filtration, right? The process of separation of solids from the solution is called filtration. Understood? Let us now consider the example of water that we use. Do all of us at all times get a safe water to drink? Sometimes water supplied through taps may be muddy. The water collected from the ponds or rivers may also be muddy, especially after rains. Let us see if we can use some methods of separation to remove insoluble impurities like soil from the water. We have one activity in your textbook, page number 39, activity 5. Collect some muddy water from the pond or the river. If it is not available, mix some soil to the water in a glass. Let it stand for half an hour. Observe the water carefully. Note your observation. Does some soil settle at the bottom of the water? Why? What will you call this process? What is it called as? It is called as sedimentation. Now slightly tilt the glass without disturbing the water. Let the water from the top flow into another glass. What will you call this process? Decantation. Decantation. In the water in the second glass. Is the water in the second glass still muddy or brown in color? Now filter it. Did the tea strainer work? Let us try filtering the water through a piece of cloth. In a piece of cloth, some holes or pores may remain in between the woven threads. These pores in a cloth can be used as a filter. In the water, if the water is still muddy, impurities can be separated by filter that has even smaller pores. A filter paper is one such filter that has very fine pores in it. Shows the steps involved in using the filter paper. A filter paper folded in the form of a cone is fixed on top of the funnel. The mixture is then poured into the filter paper. Solid particles of the mixture do not pass through it and remain on the filter paper. Fruits and vegetables juices are usually filtered before drinking to separate the seeds and solid particles of pulp. The method of filtration is also used in the process of preparation of cottage cheese in your home. Cottage cheese means paneer. Okay, you might have seen that for making paneer, a few drops of lemon juice are added to the milk as it boils. This gives a mixture of particle is separated by filtering the mixture through a fine cloth or a strainer. Now, I hope you have understood what is sieving, sedimentation, decantation, and filtration. Stay at home, stay safe, take care of yourself, and keep learning, children. And please read the textbook whenever you are having time. Understood? Thank you.